Welcome to Vialet Studio, where Vialet and her guests share stories of their passions, inspirations, and spiritual journeys. Vialet creates a sacred and fun space for individuals to be able to share information about themselves, their work, and their community. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet. Vialet Rain.
Welcome to Vialet Studio. I'm so excited today. I have Katherine with me, who's a beautiful artist that creates beautiful art and cards, that has just created a book on shaman. And so I want to share with you, our guests, her story and some of the stuff that she's done in her journey and what she offers to this world, because I think it's really beautiful when we can gather together and share our stories. So, Miss Katherine, if you would today share with us your journey. What got you on this journey? Have you always been doing this work, or did Spirit kind of pull you along like he does some of us?
Oh, I was pulled along. I actually grew up in Oklahoma, was born into a conservative family, grew up Baptist, uh, and felt like I didn't know where I belonged. I was an empath, sensitive, always an artist, drawing and painting since I was young, and loving animals, loving the outdoors. But I always kind of felt like my human compadres in my family didn't make much sense to me. And the world at large didn't make much sense. I thought it was kind of harsh, and that whole center thing was pretty hard to swallow, getting imprinted with that growing up. So by the time I was in my mid 20s or early 20s, I was searching. I was searching beyond the suffering that I'd seen. I was searching for something that was more harmonious. I loved God, but some of the stuff I was taught in religion didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It didn't sit well. And so I came across unity, and Mother, Father, God made a whole lot more sense. And then I decided to go back and get a second degree in my mid 20s. I went back to art school because, as many of us are guided growing up, we're supposed to do one thing or another, but not always what we love. And so I headed to Kansas City Art Institute and spent 3 years there finishing up a second degree, which was wonderful. But one of the cool things that happened was that I came across a woman early on who invited me to a video. Back then it was VHS tapes, nothing like anybody knows today, right? And so this was in the 80s, and I was invited to a channeling session of Ramtha. Do you remember Ramtha? Who Jay-Z Knight gave this channeling on video. And I thought, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense to me. And so that began my path into metaphysics and all things spiritual. Um, Within a year or two, I found a school that was a mystery school, and I jumped in wholeheartedly. I was actually working in business at the time, looking for how to expand my mind and abundance. But I came across dream interpretation and all things universal law and truth, spirituality, uh, remote viewing, astral projection. And I jumped right on in, knowing I was the weirdo in my family and the one yet that this was everything that called me. And so I was back in Oklahoma by that time, and it completely shape shifted my life. I had had a reading by a woman when I was interested in the school, but I was pretty, I was kind of like, I don't know, we got to check this out. I was very discerning, I think. And she did a crystal ball reading, and she nailed me. And I thought, how did you know that? And she said, well, you know this too. I said, no, I don't. I mean, I don't know how this works. She said, you can do this. You just need to learn how to direct and train your mind. You've forgotten. And so that's when I jumped into the classes, and it expanded from there. I left the corporate job I was in. I started freelancing my artwork. I was trying to figure out how my spirituality and my art went together back then, but I wasn't quite there yet. And I became a teacher of metaphysics as well as a director of schools within a year. And I was there 4 years, and it's what actually got me to Colorado in the long run, where I live now. Uh, and then I had a metaphysical store after that. I ended up in the early 90s manifesting and creating a store called Dreamweaver here in Fort Collins. And it was just this incredible path of following my heart, learning to trust my intuition, open up to my guides. I was very religious, so to speak, in doing my exercises, which anybody who gets on this path, I think that's a really good discipline of the mind to learn to find a good, whether it be shamanism or other spiritual practices, mystery schools. That's a great way to increase your intuition and learn to trust yourself, and then learn about all the workings of universal laws and truths besides just being an intuitive or one who's empathic and feels everything. So that all wove together, and it's been quite an adventure. I've gone through a dark night of the soul or two, which means what humanity is going through right now, right? Is that humanity is being faced with a lot of change. And so, part of my role now is to do my best to support people like you do in finding pathways and mapping systems that are spiritual to help you understand these times we're in, but also how to manage and change to be in the flow, to trust your intuition, because we're in a time of moving from that linear left brain old way of being into more heart-centered intuitive flow that is aligned with some greater laws and truths that I call, universal law or truth, or the laws of the creator or the divine. And so that's a little bit of how I got here. Back in the early, I guess I was 40 something, and I had another loss in my life at the time. And I thought, oh, I've had a dark night of the soul. I can feel this energy. I need to pay attention and do something. And it was at that time in 2007 that I was led to the world of shamanism, to weave into everything I'd been doing for the last 25 years. And fortunately, it landed me on a good path with some wonderful teachers from Sandra Ingerman at the time that got me to the Power Path School of Shamanism, that ended up taking me on a multicultural international training system with Shipibo in the jungles of Peru, and then down to Mexico with the Huichol people and their teachings, to the Quiro people in the Andes of Peru, as well as Native American teachings on the medicine wheel, and many other Buddhist and Hindu and even Egypt mystery school teachings that wove together in a multicultural path of shamanism, which I actually see as just really an extension of this mystery path that I stepped onto many years earlier, and then doing my best to bring that back to others in teaching and in classes, events, healing events. So I just stream of consciousness here. I kind of went into the
No,
whole
I
thing,
love
but it's been a fascinating journey.
your your story and my story is very similar. Southern Baptist,
Uh-huh.
found a mystery school, did the same thing you did. I can't do that. I'm not sure I can step into that, because it's like one end of the spectrum to another total end. And I even came home and talked. My voice doesn't like me this morning. Talked to my daughter and said, I can't do this. Like, this doesn't, she goes, you wouldn't have been called here if you weren't being called. And they're calling you to step in and trust. And that takes a lot of trust sometimes to step into where our intuition is taking us, even though our logical mind, those old beliefs are like, no, 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 no. So mystery school teaching. So totally get that, because I have my own mystery school today, teaching these classes, because they were so powerful for me. Such a big change. Like you, I went from one church to the next, to the trying to find what I was looking for. And, it took me a while to discover that I was looking in the wrong places, that there's so much more to this world. I love your story of traveling and getting to really connect to the people in these beautiful groups. We're going to have Sandra on our show in a couple months. She's scheduled to come on. I love Sandra Ingram and what she's done and her process. Talk to us a little bit about those experiences working with these groups and what you found there, because I'm sure it was super powerful.
Oh, it was life changing. The first really stepping on the shamanic path, I mean, I've met different people from Jamie Sams to Carlos Nakai over the years, especially when I had my store. But I never really came across, I thought I'd come across a Lakota or some native teacher. And it never quite happened at that time. So it wasn't time. And I trust that looking back. But when this started to unfold, it just flew into my world. I went to a 4-day healing retreat with Sandra and Jose and Lena Stevens of the Power Path School of Shamanism, and then 2 Shipibo shamans from the jungles of Peru. And at the time, I thought, how cool was that? And I needed healing. I needed help navigating the sudden loss of a relationship and what that triggered in me. And I knew that I didn't want to completely disintegrate this time around. I'm like, okay, I need help. I get it. And Sandra, I'd sold a ton of her books, Soul Retrieval, back in the 90s when I had my store. And I just kept hearing her name inwardly. And so I finally found her at this retreat. And that was a profound 4 days because we went and we laid out on the land in northern New Mexico for 24 hours like a vision quest. And it was a nice decompression to let go of anything that's getting in the way of harmony. But then we came back into camp and I met this, particularly Enrique. He's a little bitty Peruvian guy. And when he smiled, he just lit up the camp. So that was like, oh, I felt this love and hope and heartedness toward him as soon as that began to happen. And of course, everything unfolded between my time with them where I got a healing with Sandra, I got a healing with Jose and Lena, but I got a healing with Erlinda and Enrique, who are the 2 Shipibo. And it was the coolest thing. It was different than anything I'd experienced. They use sacred tobacco to clean and clear. They do extraction work of dense energy that's been stuck in the field or the body. They do prayers and blessings, and they sing into you as part of their healing. And I just thought that was like, oh, so amazing. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I do more of this? And so I took a 10-day training with Jose and Lena, which led me to an advanced practice in shamanism that they had a 2-year international program. And so I signed up as soon as I knew. I mean, and they let me know that there was a lot of ceremonial work that we would do with these indigenous peoples and their different medicines. And which part of working with the indigenous people is these particular tribes I work with plant medicines, which I never would have done prior to this. And thought this was different and it was very interesting. And so I went to Peru. I've been down there a dozen times and spent at least a week to 2 weeks down there with the different tribes, particularly Shipibo. And they are descendants from the Andes, from the Incans. So the Q'ero people in the Andes, who are all Incan descendants, are also brothers and sisters, basically, to the people who are in the jungle, which is a fascinating lineage to begin to see each of their understandings, their medicines that they work with, their teachings on healing and on harmony, because shamanism really is a path of understanding how the world works mystically and how to bring that down into the physical world and work with the natural world, where spirit's imbued into all our natural world. But also understanding, if you're out of sorts, like the chaos in our world right now, the chaos many people, the anxiety many people, the fear people are feeling, is that this is a path of putting back life force, light, and harmony back into your energy, helping you understand what creates that or what distorts it. And so one of the things that I want to say about the Shipibo is, and you'll find this teaching globally, this is a universal truth that you'll find from indigenous peoples, at least the awarenesses I find, is that most of these they're all artisan cultures. They understand energy and they understand what is harmonious and not harmonious. So they will tell you that you're born as a song, which made total sense to me. For all of us who are working in the field of energy, who are sensitive, just imagine you came in whole and complete in the way you were experiencing. At least most of us would say that would be true. And so your song, your vibration was in harmony until you interfaced with fear or judgment, which is fear, or greed, which is fear, or a trauma, which is fear and fright. And those experiences of anything born of fear, a harsh word, a judgment of anything, will distort your energy field. For all us empaths, we go, we pull back. It doesn't feel good because it's not harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is some of the first energies that ultimately create illness or lack of abundance or just the inability to really be yourself and live your life authentically. So that's where this piece of singing is. They understand that if your song is distorted by fear, one of their tools besides cleaning with sacred tobacco, cleaning with prayer, is that they will sing a harmony of the plants back to you or other songs that are imbued with energy medicine to bring you back into a place of peace and centeredness. So that's pretty foundational, I find. And that song is not just auditory, because sound and vibration are not just auditory. Some of us have seen where we've got a pendulum in the sand and then a gong is played and it creates a pattern in the sand. For some of you have seen something like this. Well, imagine that the sound creates a vibration that can be a pattern like in a painting or in a tapestry or in your body, that it creates form. So it's pretty cool because they also weave tapestries that are songs that you can hang in your home that will sing into your room. So like beautiful art that you sell, like behind you, that creates a vibration into the room to bring harmony and wholeness to all the people around you, as well as yourself. So that's a pretty cool piece about it. You know, some of the crazy stuff I've gone and done besides work with the people. I've been to the Andes at up to 17,000 feet where we worked with an Andean shaman up there. That was quite an adventure. Usually when you hit the shamanic path, you're on a massive adventure path that can be quite treacherous at times. But I got very sick in the Andes and I was wondering what the heck, and had some profound teachings up there, which usually happen if you're paying attention or you're praying to ask for help. But that was amazing, and interfaced with the Caro people who teach all about energy. And one of the big things that I like to teach from the Caro people has to do with reciprocity. And it's a foundational teaching I find that goes through all mystery school teachings, universal laws and truths, coming back to all the indigenous peoples I've had the opportunity to work with. Is there's that reciprocity is about the golden rule. Basically, as you give, so do you receive. And it's taught, you know, pretty much globally in very different places besides how I heard it growing up in my Baptist faith at the time. And that it's a basic rule of energy, that as you put your focus on and give, if you give with love, it returns in love. If you give and you kind of have some resentment that you're doing it, well, don't do it, because it'll come back to you that way. But they get into deeper teachings of energy, how to clean energy, and really how to come back in the heart, and to understand all the flows of energy so that you're cleaning what they call hucha. And that's their word for fear. I kind of like it. We sing different songs to clean and clear your energy, your home, your body, your mind, your heart. And so we're wanting to get the hucha out when we're doing healing work and put the sami back in, which is life force, that most everyone here will probably understand as prana or chi that's in the natural world. So that's a couple of things from my adventures. Then one more, I'll tell a little bit about the Huichol people in central Mexico. And they are a peyote people. And they, what every year there's a pilgrimage to a place called Wirikuta and Mount Mato. Uh, and this is a sacred pilgrimage that if these people have the opportunity to go at least once in their lifetime, is considered a sacred opportunity and privilege. And so when I graduated from my 2 year program, that was one of the pilgrimages I got to go on to. And it was quite the wild adventure because about 20 of us gathered in these big white vans and about 3 vans going across the border into Mexico. We look like the CIA. It's quite hysterical, and it's quite wildly treacherous because I was so surprised. I see guns at the border. I see what looks like military, and this was back in 2010. I can't imagine what it might be like today.
Mm-hmm.
And we drive quite a ways to go into the middle of nowhere in that is called a place called Wirikuta, and it's where these peyote fields are. And it's these are sacred ceremonies that they do, from a peyote hunt to an all-night ceremony from dusk until dawn, and to 2 days later a walk, a pilgrimage up this sacred mountain that's about a 4-hour hike up the mountain and equally as long down the mountain. And that pilgrimage was one where we were the first group in about 15 years who had gotten to meet with any of their shamans, because it'd become extremely dangerous for white people or gringos from the States to meet with the shamans. And so we couldn't be seen with them. We had to clandestinely meet them in the desert where we were going to do our ceremonies. And then they could show up, but we couldn't be seen with them for fear that either, there would be bad energy come toward us, or they could be killed because they were sharing their ways with us. However, when we got onto the mountain and we were in ceremony on the mountain, some other Weechal saw us. And because we'd been initiated into their ways, they could literally see the energy tattoos of the medicine in our field, in our auras. And so they're like, oh, cool, they're part of us. It didn't matter that we were gringos from the United States. We'd been pulled into their tribal lineage through the practices and the ceremonies that we'd done with their shamans. And so we were completely safe at that point. So it's a very interesting thing to see how some of these people need to work so that we have a great harmony, but then to transcend some of their rules and that are there to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. So that was like one of the most amazing Christ experiences, is very solar, golden light awareness that I had. And they're some of the most beautiful people. All these people are just the sweetest, most harmonious people I've ever met, to be very
That's
honest.
pretty awesome to be able to have those experiences and to be able to receive some of those teachings, because they're so connected to the land, and how centuries and centuries people have passed these down, and in such a sacred, reverent way. Whereas I don't mean this in a bad way, but as Americans, we don't always hold space for sacredness and reverence and respect for our traditions, and holding that space that our families sent down through many centuries. So I think we've missed out on a lot. I know I have. I crave sacredness. I think everyone in a soul level craves sacredness and reverence and connection to the divine. They just don't know what that means, what that looks like, and how do you create it and how do you have it. So I think it's great, awesome that you had such an amazing experience. Wow. So how does this relate? Is some of this in your new book? Do you share some of this? So let's talk about your book that's coming out, because we're really excited. Tell us about the journey of creating this book and what people can find in it.
Cool. I'm just going to hold it up real quick. It's called
Awesome.
Artist, Shaman, Healer, Sage. And actually, this is a culmination of the last 13 years of my life. And probably actually the last 40 years or more of my life. And my interfacing with mysticism into shamanism and getting to work with all these people in ceremony. You know, I started into the school, I started doing ceremonial work in 2007 with different teachers that I've had, shamanic teachers. As I prepared to go into this 2 year school of shamanism in 2008, which expanded everything. And so I did ceremony every month, if not twice a month, with different containers that were built from a shamanic perspective to help bring me back into harmony and support my journey. So I was just there receiving. I just wanted to heal. You know, I wasn't aiming to teach it, but I'm a teacher. I'm a spiritual teacher. So, you know, it's going to come around that I got to pay this forward. And so by 2010, when I'm graduating, I'd already started holding shamanic healing circles at my place here in Fort Collins, probably for a year and a half or so. I'd been doing healing work prior to this, but I started weaving in the teachings. And so, you know, I'd have 20 or 30 people in a circle back then. And uh, then it would go on to, well, I'm going to teach a class on the medicine wheel. I've got to do this. And I taught an intuitive painting class back then. So one of my first classes was intuitive painting in the medicine wheel, a 7-week experience. And it just started flooding out of me. I mean, I never thought I could sing. And I thought I was tone deaf. And then once I went into ceremony and medicine work, and they sang into me, and they sang into me, and they sang into me, I started to realize I could channel song through me, but it scared the crap out of me. You know, it's like, what? You know, so one day I came home in class and I remember saying, hey, I think I'm supposed to sing into each of you as part of opening the circle. And I thought, what did I just say? Oh my gosh. You know, but then it began this channeling of sound. I've been channeling artwork for quite a while and messages, but now it was to come through the voice. And so each person in that class got a soul song to open class, and everyone was like open hearted, crying, and could understand. And it was star language. So that it was beyond me singing in Spanish or in some of the traditions that were sung to me. But it just started to flood out. And so in 2011 was my first official Artist Shaman Healer Sage class. And I've taught the class once or twice a year since then. And I've known that, you know, the curriculum's grown, the different rituals and ceremonies I usually people have grown. My interface with the allies in the medicine wheel has expanded because of how much I work with it and other allies, helpers, totem animals. And so I've been asked for quite a few years when I've taken workshops on the road to get a book. I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it. And yet finally, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now, I started to really work on the foundations of how this would be in a book because I had almost all the written material. Well, I say that. I had the foundation of the written material for years that had been growing and expanding. And so I finally, over the last year and a half or 2 years, got it into form and went into design last, I guess it was September, October, which I thought would take about 4 weeks. But because we're using a lot of my artwork that I have to say are painted shamanically, they're painted as doorways or portals to the divine. That you're not only getting words that are vibrationally set to awaken you, but you're also getting the expression of those songs and that intention artwork vibrationally to activate your field to support you so that you can receive this beyond your intellect, that you can receive this as like an activation. Besides the fact it's a beautiful 4-color book with original art and guidances from practices, ritual, ceremony, shamanic truths, and basically a medicine bag of goodies for you to follow. You know, how do you smudge? How do you clear with flower water? What is flower water? how to make a plant bath, why you would want a plant bath, and what it will do for you. I've got a special smoke bath in here that's made from a different group of Shipibo that I worked with in the jungle that has special ingredients that really help you clear psychic disruption, soul loss. It's pretty amazing. And I've got all the instructions with how to use it. So it's like a little shamanic Bible. I've got a whole piece in here on all of the medicine wheel and how to pray with the allies, how to call in the directions, how to set a container for yourself. Because I find that when I start any class now, I start any experience, I set a container and I call my allies and I call and set up the medicine wheel to help hold that experience. And then I let it go at the end of the experience to dissolve it. So there's things that I didn't do for years that are now just like brushing my teeth. And this is a place where people can integrate this with any spiritual practice they have to expand in how they call on all the elemental energies as well as all the heavenly energies to really go to another step, whether you're a beginning practitioner or someone in the middle, or even advanced practitioners I have who are looking forward to working with this, because it just gives you a great expanded experiences that you can draw upon, because this is a path of personal empowerment and awakening. That, as I know, because you have a store and just what you're telling me you all have done, is that you know how important it is that we help everybody become as harmonious and beautiful, connected to spirit as possible. And that's part of the whole thing that makes my life better, is to know that if I can give you some of the tools that I've found that make a difference in being more harmonious, because these energies are crazy. They're intense, coming in astrologically, solar flares. We're astrologically in a massive change to awaken. So we have to die to all these old patterns that don't work anymore. We've got to get beyond the greed model, as I call it, back to the heart. And so this is a great foundational tool that we actually bound it in what's called a flexi cover. It's kind of between a hard cover and a soft cover, because we want it to be lasting for each person, to know that they're going to pick it up again and again and again. You might read it straight through, but you might go back to different prayers or different rituals that'll help you work with energy and be clearly the dreamer or the creator of your life, in alignment and harmony with your higher self and spirit. So.
I love that. I love that. I can't wait to see the book now. I'm excited. I'm excited. And to have it in our store, because you're right. You know, we have people coming to our center every day. COVID has been an awakening, and I forget how many billion people they think awakened during this period of time, that are starting to come out and go, what is going on? What's happening? What do I do with this? What does this mean? And I've been very clear in setting a space that's safe, because you and I have experienced, you go from a Baptist background and now you're going to walk into a mystery school. What was our first reaction? Oh no, I'm not sure that's what I need to do. And so we've been really careful in the design, the setup of our store, that we don't scare people, that they have an opportunity to explore, to discover, to open doors that they may not have ever thought about opening at their own pace, at their own timing. You know, the books that we carry, everything in our store is very thought out. And I've had people come and visit the store and they're like, we love the fact that we don't walk in and see a pentagram in our face, right? We just don't do that. I want people, we have Christians that come in and go, wow, right? I want whoever is in that space to be able to come in and not feel scared, not to say that we don't have fears. We do. That's part of this experience here, right? To be afraid, but to have things that they can come in and check out and explore and find their way to whoever they are. Our center is inclusive. We welcome anything that is loving and harmony and light into our center. whatever that might mean to you, whatever that looks like to you, that's what we hold space for so that everyone can come, right? And so I love that this will be another tool that we can offer people to be able to explore, to experience, to heal through, to find their way through, because we're being called. And we gotta, we have our own space to do that, right? We're all being called. Whatever that looks like to you, you're being called, whatever that feels like. So I want it to be a great experience for you to find your way through that. So that's what I'm really passionate about. And so I love your art, by the way. I think your art's amazing. I would love to have a piece of your art in my center at some point. I have art from local people and people far away throughout my center. And I put a plaque at the bottom so that people know where to find the artist and how to find their own art, because I'm definitely a person that loves and is drawn to art, because I do think they're doorways to lots of magical places. And so we have art throughout our center. So someday, Katherine, I want to connect so we can have a piece of your art in our center.
Absolutely. And I've got altar cards and things like that until then, and I've got larger poster prints, but I would love for you to have a piece. And perhaps once COVID lightens up and that people can come and go a little more safely, so to speak, without a mask or however we navigate this, um, I do soul portraits and spirit guide paintings. And so up until COVID, I traveled 8 times a year throughout the US at least to do soul portraits and spirit guide paintings for people in person. I've been doing them remotely since COVID hit. But great opportunity to connect and bring beautiful expression through of each person, a channeled experience, and a piece of art comes with it. It's amazing experience that can be an activation for a lot of people. But you got to look on my site and say, what are you attracted to? We need to get you set up.
We do, because I just love it. We carry your deck, your amazing deck in our center. I could see it. I can't. We carry probably hundreds of decks, but yours is one of them. I carry all my favorites. What I tell my customers, all my favorite Oracle and Tarot decks, they're there. And so people come in, they're like, "We love your selection." I go, "Because they're all my favorites. I can't pick just one." Right? How many of us have 100 decks at home? I know I do. So I carry all my favorites. And so Mythical Goddess, is that correct?
Yes, Mythical Goddess Tarot.
Yeah, tarot deck. And so it's a beautiful deck. We sell lots of them in the store. People are really attracted to it as a deck. And you also said before we started, you're working on another deck that we may see sometime this year. So
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about that.
So I started this deck 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought it'd be out in 2018, and then I had a car accident, and it slowed everything down. So it's perfect timing. I know it's called the Masters of Light Wisdom Oracle, and it is this beautiful. I'm debating whether I'm at 44 or 55 cards. I'm right at 44 right now. I'm finishing the text. It's about archangels and ascended masters. I'm channeling quite a few what I call divine beings of light, other higher dimensional guides. They may be interplanetary. So I've had a lot of Pleiadians and Syrians come through in my channeling that bring messages and particular guidance and support, as well as some of the Mayan masters that you might read about in the Dream Spell by Jose Arguelles, which is another, it's kind of like a Mayan system that can kind of give you guidance on your own birth energy. It's like a Mayan astrology. However, a lot of the symbols that come through are just glyphs. So I sat down to channel in the energy through an image like a portrait and ask their mastery to come through and to give us even more energy and clarity. So that's part of the deck. Excuse me. And then there'll be some goddesses in there too. So right now they're kind of sorting themselves out, all who goes in this process. I've written probably 3/4 of the guidebook, and it'll probably change. I know how things will go in the conversation, conversation. But I actually have posted a lot of the inspirations for many of the cards on Facebook on my page there over the last year. And so I'm pretty excited once this book is launched and I've got everything going with that. It's coming out by late May. Um, is that I can really focus in on the finishing this up and getting it to the printer. I've got my own publishing company basically. So I've got that product. And then the cool thing too that's coming from the Artist Shaman Healer Sage book is another deck that once I get the Masters of Light sent off, I've got over 74 illustrations in this book that are full color, from small to full page. And for each section or chapter of the book is a full page piece of art that is indicative of the section of the book and what's being called in. So those want to create a deck with the wisdom of shamanism and this path of waking up. And so I know that I've got a whole list, but those are my first two projects after this. It's like, oh my gosh, I got a lot to do. It's like, okay, just chill out, divine timing.
Oh, there on my phone. I thought I'd silenced it. I apologize.
That's
No,
okay.
it's funny. I laugh because spirit, you're like, okay, I'm human. I only go so fast, but they keep bringing us. Okay, now this, and now do this, and put this together, and get this started for us, right? And I'm kind of like you. I'm always saying, it's coming, it's coming. They're like already pushing, and I'm like, okay, let me finish this little project up before I start the next one. But it's exciting, isn't it, to have all these things that you see coming that you're going to be able to create and offer to the planet and the world. I'm really excited. I can imagine, I see the deck from the book as being a great companion to the book, right? So I look forward to both of those decks and seeing those decks.
Cool. Me too. I can't wait to like get in here and finish it up because it's so close. And just even, I've been teaching quite a long time in this part of the world, and having created the Mythical Goddess Tarot with Sage Holloway, the author, was such a wonderful co-creation, and just having that out in the world has been awesome. So giving birth to this book was another like amazing experience to have it into form and to know that it's going out to many more people than I'll ever meet in person. One of the visions that we have, just like having your center, is we know the importance for everyone out there and for centers like you is to have places for people to gather, is to have places for people to share their experiences, have places for people to learn and evolve together in where you feel respected and safe. So thank you for having your center. It was always such an honor to have that space when I had mine. So one of the things in the back of this book and on the website, Artist Shaman Healer Sage, that we're putting together is we're encouraging people to gather with friends and in circles. So we're encouraging book circles or book reviews, where you sit week after week and you talk about a chapter, you talk about something you learned. I'm in the process of getting a forum up on the new website, which it takes its time as we unfold everything, where people can have online support. But I think, especially as things open back up, how important it is to have people who might take this book and lead a class or use it in there, or just have a study group. And so we're working on systems now that we hope to have online support systems, both for stores as well as individuals in the long run, to encourage how do you gather in tribe? How do you find one another? And you're just such a spot for that. It's like any way we can support that, you let us know, and we'll do our best to support you and your community.
I love that. And thank you for that, because I agree with you. I have people come in every day and they feel alone because no one in their family, right, or their circle of friends of what they've created understand what they're feeling, thinking, going through. And I tell people every day, this is a safe place to connect to others that are experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, that you can share the journey with, that you can be yourself. Because I think for me anyways, I was in a professional role for years and years, and you talked about coming out of a job, right? We were kind of cloaked and hidden because nobody would have understood, what was really going on within. And I was an HR person and a college professor. There is no way people would have understood, right? And so you're kind of hidden, and there's a lot of people hidden. It's nice to be able, even if you don't want to come fully out, to have a space where you can go and be yourself and feel safe and get to be part of something. So community is really important to me in creating that and creating a space where people can gather. And we love bringing in authors and artists and people with their books. We have a high top table in our retail store that is set up for people to come in and meet and greet and sign books and card decks and art and all of that, so that people can come in and really get to connect with you and find that. So I love that space of creating that. So share with us before we go, Miss Katherine, what do you offer people that might want to connect with you that don't live in where you live? Do you have online offerings? Do you offer services? What can they find when they go to your website that they can search for, find more information on?
Great. On a real foundational level, I do have products from the Mythical Goddess Tarot to the Pocket Full of Blessings and Pocket Blessing cards to pre-orders right now with the book. But I'm hoping we're going to get everybody down to you who lives next to you. So we want to get you all in this local store to get these things if you have an interest. But also, I sell some shamanic flower waters that are from Peru online, as well as I make drums, and I teach drum making classes throughout the year. So those come up through events, the drum making classes. I also teach an artist, shaman, healer, sage course once or twice a year. I just began that one for 2021 spring. And that's an in-depth 6-month training that is both in person, but I've got 5 remote students out of 15 this session. And I just Zoom them in. So right now, with the book coming out and the fact that I'm full in this particular class, I'm working at creating an online course that's just strictly online, where you'd get to do all the same things, as well as some shorter introductory courses on shamanism and these basic principles that is just not quite as in depth. So you can start out with maybe a 3-hour introductory class. Then you can decide after you work with me and the teachings if you really want to go deeper, because it's such an initiative path. I also offer women's new moon ceremonies remotely that works with opening a medicine wheel, a little energetic clean off, works with your intentions, Mythical Goddess Tarot reading, and typically some sort of a ceremony for that particular new moon cycle for each person. And I do a full moon shamanic healing circle around the full moon, which I have one coming up next week, next Monday. And that's a remote session. These are only $22 to $33, depending on the session, what I have going on in it. So I typically also within these circles not only do remote shamanic healing, but there's teaching within that and an opportunity to do a little ritual that I imbue into the ceremony, and I encourage people around. Like we're going to do some cleaning energetically with fire this next ceremony on the full moon, but also we're going to do a cord binding ceremony and burning ceremony that people can just watch and receive it. Or when they sign up for class, they get instructions on what to gather so they can do it along with me during the ceremony. So I'm expanding with online classes that ebb and flow. I've got an Mythical Goddess Tarot class that I'll be bringing to my website here soon and my teaching site. So we're just continuing to expand and do our best to bring education. Mythical Goddess Tarot, I'm going to do a particular live class on divination with the goddess and understanding the mythology that goes along with the tarot. Because that deck was always meant to bring in that divine feminine expansion energy we have going on now. and imbue that with the symbolism of the ancient tarot teachings, but to evolve it into really helping you get back to your intuition and expanding that in how you navigate your reality here, and to bring the mythology in that's global from the divine feminine. So that's
Well,
a little bit. Oh, yes, wait, I have to say one more. I am doing remote shamanic healing work, as well as I do some soul guidance sessions, tarot readings online by Zoom, and also soul portraits. So this is, I've got 1 or 2 hour sessions for a soul portrait, which is about me tapping into your divine energy, helping you see and experience who you are beyond your personality. So it may look like your physical body. It may be an expansion of how you see yourself, but it's about your soul essence coming through to help you remember and embrace the truth and the beauty of who you are, and get beyond just the finiteness of being in your human journey. So it's a great channeled session, both with guidance and imagery. I ship the painting to you so you can join me safely on Zoom and address any questions you might have for yourself right now and expanding to your soul's awareness. I see it often as a healing for people because it breaks their hearts open in so many ways to get to a very affirmative state of who they are. No matter what we do personality-wise, as I bet you would say, too, I have a feeling is that we really are love, but we don't always remember that here. And so this is about getting you there. I also do spirit guide paintings. That's another session where we work with all your questions you have for your guides or how to get in touch with them, and bring in at least one. Sometimes your whole guide team shows up and one will just come to the front who wants to communicate with you, but they'll communicate for your guides and ancestors of whatever you need right now. Again, I see that as an activation in that experience, and I record it on Zoom and then just ship you the artwork.
I love that. I love that. Such great offerings. Definitely you're invited to Denver anytime you want to come down. We love to host people. We have 2 guest rooms upstairs. You can come and stay with us if you feel comfortable. We love to host people in our home and have them here. So just know that's an open invite. Thank you so much for taking the time today to kind of visit with us. As you get some of these new things happening, please reach back out to us. We'd like to schedule to chat about what's happening new with you, because we love to have people back on our show. So thank you for taking the time this morning to chat. I look forward to your book and getting it in the store.
Well, I feel so grateful. I'm so happy to get to know you and your community, and absolutely count me in on book signings, deck signings, whatever you want. Let's do it.
I love that. I think that will be awesome. Well, thank you everyone for watching today. We hope to see you really soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts in Littleton. Come out and check it out. And thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet and how she can help you discover your spiritual gifts, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com and on YouTube at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you really soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Come experience the difference at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.